where the bus is trying to get there first, the old lady gets knocked out of the way, a Volkswagen Beetle gets crushed. So they okay, that's the wrong incentive. Now they pay the drivers based on whether they're on time.
I see.
Which means that if I'm late and I come to a group of passengers, do I stop? No. I have no interest in picking people up. So what's happened with this new system is they've solved both of those problems. The first was the incentive problem. Now people don't get picked up. Average commute time has gone from 40 minutes to 2 hours.
Wow.
They solved the profit problem by getting rid of the 60 million in the black. They're 400 million in the red now. They lose 400 million a year.
Wow.
So by throwing away this private system that worked and moving to a more public system, they showed that incentives matter. Incentives don't just matter if you work for the market. The incentives that people have matter in every facet of their lives.
Yeah.
And they just got it completely wrong. The amazing thing to me about this was no one was made better off. Everybody was made worse off. The president, Michelle Bachelet, apologized and said, this is the worst policy we've ever seen. We thought we would help poor people. It's been terrible. It may actually bring down her government. How can it be that a national government is brought down by having a botched bus system in the capital?
Indeed. Well, that sounds like a government that's a bit more accountable than what we have here to start with, if that in fact happens. So is there an ideal solution? So clearly you can't just incent them based upon the number of people they pick up without some rules concerning how you avoid the chariot scenes.
It's an easy thing to do.
Okay.
And it's to allow curb rights. If you've ever seen a bus stop, there's a bench, there's a little shelter, and there may be a place for the bus to pull off. Sell those. Sell those to private companies. And some companies are going to have trouble buying those. That means they're not going to be as competitive. And allow frequent rider passes. Because the problem that you have is, it's like overfishing.
Yep.
Suppose that there's a bunch of fish someplace, all the boats go there and try to get them first.
Yep.
But if you could somehow say, this is mine, this is yours, we'd have a reason to take care of it.
Yes.
So if I have a bus stop and you have a bus stop, and all the police do is enforce property rights. Your bus can't stop at my bus stop, and mine can't stop at yours. So we can't steal each other's customers. And I have a reason to wait for my bus because I have a frequent rider card. Those things have worked in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has a nearly private bus system now. So a success in the United States is along those grounds. Chile's mistake was to say private is bad, incentives are wrong, and then chose all the wrong incentives and ruined things. All they had to do was define property rights and use markets the right way, and they could have solved their problem.
Interesting. So when you're talking about buses, typically most people are probably used to thinking about buses that follow a fixed route. How does that play out? Do bus networks then buy a series of...
In Chile, there were 3,000 different bus companies before this reform.
Wow.
Now, some of them were really cheap, and there were chickens on top, and they stopped every block. And some of them were big express buses that had a stewardess and served coffee and were very expensive. So there's all sorts of different levels of service. I don't know the answer to your question, which is better, having a fixed route or going around looking for customers. It'll turn out that if you can make a profit doing it, that's the best one.
Exactly.
So why would I or some bureaucrat, either one, think they know the answer to your question? It's complicated. Let's see. Let's see which ones survive in the marketplace in a competitive environment where only good service and low price is rewarded.
Indeed. Did you run into anybody or get into any discussions about the retirement system in Chile? I'm aware that they've done some privatization and have been following that with some interest.
They probably don't have their... Chile appears to have had some transition problems in creating their private retirement system. They don't have it quite right yet. One of the difficulties that I think we might have if we were to try to do something like this in the United States, so suppose we were going to try to take a page out of Chile's book and say, what could we learn from privatizing the retirement system? I'm a little bit worried about the US government being so concerned about stock prices because everybody's retirement portfolio, instead of being in Social Security, is in private stocks, that they would try to manipulate stock prices. What we have, though, is almost as bad. Social Security is invested, if you can call it that, in US government bonds. Now, me investing in government bonds for my retirement program, that's pretty conservative. But the federal government investing in its own debt means there's no money there.
Right.
The Social Security Trust Fund, if you open up the box, there's nothing there but a couple of moths and an old IOU.
Yep.
The government owes itself the trust. So a government bond is not an asset from the perspective of the government. It's a liability.
Absolutely.
So the Chilean system, because it's invested in private, there's a lot of volatility, people are concerned about it. Our system is even worse.
Right.
So if we can take some solace from it, our Social Security system may be so messed up that there are real incentives to try to improve it. This is our chance to try to do something better.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I've been exploring, and from a historical perspective is very interesting, is if you study the history of money, many people don't realize the fact that money in our system is debt. Debt is money. All money comes and is birthed out of the debt creation process when people take on loans. But it's not always been like that. We had Lincoln financed the Civil War using greenbacks, and you can look back to tally sticks and colonial scrip and so forth. What are your thoughts on different sorts of monetary systems, and do you think that the current system that we're on is destined for a happy and stable future?
The system that we currently use can't last. We have enjoyed the fact that the US dollar is the currency of choice all over the world. And so as a result, people all over the world hold their value in dollar-denominated assets. The Chinese have bought up a whole lot of our debt, our federal government debt, enabling us to go on a long spending spree. What that means is we're now exposed to the risk of two types. One is they sell off all this money for some other currency. Suppose they convert to euros. The result would be a huge change in the value of the dollar, a plunge in the value of the dollar, resulting in enormous increases in prices of everything we import, including oil.
Right.
The other problem that we have is that you can't really control, for the reason that you said, you can't really control the rate of growth of the money supply, because there's nothing like gold or any other commodity backing it. The Federal Reserve has no means of slowing down the rate of growth of the money supply because it's created it as debt.
Sure.
So we can get domestic inflation also. So we have the problem of exchange risk from other countries and domestic inflation risk that we can't control. I don't know though, I guess I'm a little skeptical. Things are not yet so bad that ill-informed policies couldn't make them worse.
Sure.
So a political motivation from members of Congress. Now, maybe some economists can sit down and say, here's a better solution. I'm skeptical that solution would be adopted rather than one that makes it even worse.
Right.
So I'm skeptical, but willing to accept the better system until we have a consensus on something that would work better.
Gotcha. Have you been aware of any of the local experiments that have been tried with local barter-based currencies, such as the Ithaca Hour, for example? There have been some opportunities where local communities have come together and said, hey, you know what, we've got the same people, the same businesses, the same talents here, but just no one's got enough money. And this system in Ithaca was set up in the early 90s during the recession in the 90s, not by anyone with a financial background, but just local businesses that wanted to facilitate trade. Is that something that you've thought about or done any studies regarding? I'm
a big fan of many, many different private solutions.
Yes.
So if a group of people or a city want to try something like that, that's great. What I'm worried about is if a city said, and this is the only currency that we will accept within our borders, because then they have the same control, except at a narrower level, a more local level, than the federal government does. The People's Republic of Carrboro, right here in North Carolina, has scrip like this, where there are dollars that you can use at restaurants and you can use to buy food at the farmer's market, and people use it. It works pretty well. So that's great, more power to them. I'm just worried about any sort of coercive solution. Private, cooperative, collective solutions are great.
Well, and it does seem like we really are heading down the wrong road if we look at things like the housing bill that was just passed and the attempt to bail out our mortgage lenders, which is basically, attaching the national taxpayer to a really significant liability. And frankly, we don't know where the housing market's going to end up. Is it really wise to be assuming that liability on behalf of the taxpayer?
Suppose you and I are playing roulette, and you've got some money, and you think, I'm going to bet this on 33 black. Oh, I better not. I might lose. So you do the sensible thing, you bet small amounts, and you take most of your money home. I think I'm going to bet it all on 33 black.
Not my money.
And I lose, and I say to the croupier, give me that much again, and more. Reward me for having taken the stupid risk, until at some point 33 black comes up, and then I say it's all mine.
Yep.
That's mine. I took risks. I worked for this. So if you're gambling with house money, and that's what our large financial corporations have been doing, then that's wrong. We have to stop that. Now, I don't blame them. You can't blame a dog for eating out of the garbage. Having the government say we're going to pay off your losses is the problem. Having sugar daddy there to say you're too big to fail.